actually wasn't built to sustain, right?
Yeah.
The hallmarks of their economy. The question that players should ask themselves when they go in is, what is the equilibrium that exists to make sure that supply and demand are aligned, right? Because what has happened in every single one of these projects without fail is it's all inflationary economies. And it relies on more players being fed into the funnel, creating this pyramid, like literally of players, like that continue to feed all the way up the chain. And if you're in those projects early enough and you get out at the right time, then you can be very financially successful. That's not a great experience, because if you've made a ton of money, there's a bunch of people who have lost a ton of money.
What you're about to watch is a super interesting conversation with the head of Web3 gaming at the Wax blockchain, Michael Rubinelli. He has a ton of experience and wisdom to share with us about how to make Web3 games sustainable, why Web3 games can be better for players and game developers, and how we solve some of the biggest problems that we're facing today when it comes to botting and all of the exploits that are trying to kill Web3 gaming before it can happen. This video is proudly sponsored by Unstoppable Domains. Unstoppable Domains sells easy addresses. So instead of having the super long, convoluted line of numbers, you can literally have something that makes sense, like a I'mTheBestGamer.com or something like that, which is a much easier wallet address. Another cool thing about Unstoppable Domains is that you own the address forever. And because the website is not hosted on a traditional DNS, it never expires. You can literally mint your domain as an NFT, host it peer-to-peer, and then you have a website that everyone can access and no one can take down. In the future, Unstoppable Domains hopes to transform these into becoming your complete digital identity, your wallet, your website, and your identity in the metaverse. Check out Unstoppable Domains, linked in the description below. Plus, if you buy a domain through our link, then you're helping out on-chain gaming and supporting us in our content creation endeavors. So thank you guys so much for using our sponsor. I think you guys are really gonna enjoy this interview. If you do, remember to drop a big thumbs up, hit subscribe for more content, and now enjoy this super insightful conversation. First of all, Michael, thank you for joining me here. This is super exciting. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on a lot of questions that I think are rushing around in a lot of people's minds right now.
Jake, I'm humbled to be here. I'm a big fan of what you do, and I appreciate the charge that you've taken on. So thank you for having me.
Sweet. Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, the reason I started making content is because I'm just so excited about the space and the potential that's here. But starting off, we are in a bear market right now, and I know a lot of people's bags are probably hurting who are invested in crypto and crypto gaming. So when do you think the crypto bear market might end, or what might be the cause to bring the optimism back?
Wow, that's a great question. I candidly, I actually don't have an answer. I'm gonna punt on this, but I'm gonna say a few things that maybe get people talking. Is, first of all, I actually don't care about what the price of cryptocurrency is, right? Like, fair. I don't sit there and go, wow, Bitcoin is down, therefore I shouldn't build a game. Like, the whole vision and beauty of Web3 and the technology is player ownership of assets, that they can do with as they see fit. No matter those assets have more or less value relative to a cryptocurrency, because somewhere down the line it's tied to maybe a token, and a token is tied to a cryptocurrency, and a cryptocurrency is tied to a centralized or decentralized exchange. Like that, I understand. But the real joy and the real excitement is finally, for the first time in my entire lifetime, and I've played games my entire life, I get to own all my stuff. Yeah. And what I do with it is up to me. Like, that is such a powerful, powerful thing. If you can't get excited about that, then you probably have no pulse. And we know that 3 billion gamers in the world play games every single day, and every single penny they pay goes to the developer or the publisher. They can't do anything with the asset. They can't sell their account without getting banned. Like, there's all these draconian things that exist that 3 billion people don't go, well, what's my ROI? Or when can I, when Lambo? Or like, how can be profitable? Like, I understand there's a sect of the market that cares about that, but and I understand that, right? That's human nature. I want to make money, right? We all do. Yeah. But more importantly, I want to have control over I bought this, right? No, according to EA and others, you've licensed it from us, and we can turn this off at any time, and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, that's such a terrible kind of walled garden to live in. And to me, the joy is really bringing ownership and control to the players and allowing them to really have full control over their purchases.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw a curveball in here because based on your answer, it made me think of a conversation I was just having on Twitter, where if you don't know, Gala Games recently paused earnings on Townstar, and it's made a lot of people frustrated because they're like, well, does it matter if I own my asset if I don't own the utility that asset has?
Right.
So how would you respond to that critique or feeling that I think a lot of people have right now?
Yeah, look, we say it all the time. Like, earning is a result; it's not a goal, right? Like, if I build something that's really fun to play and you play it for a long, extended period of time, you'll have a lot of things that have value, right? And just so happens, maybe you're selling for a profit, maybe you're not. Maybe you're just subsidizing your gaming efforts. I mean, you talk about all these players who have, $5, $10, $15,000 into World of Warcraft, then nothing to show for it. But now all of a sudden, what if those assets were worth 3, 4, 5, 6 grand? Like, all of a sudden now you don't feel so bad, right? Yeah. And so there's this whole notion of engagement and accumulation of assets tied to now real world value. Like, that's the tension that exists. And when they make that comment around Townstar about, like, what's the point of owning assets if the utility isn't there? Like, the utility is there. Utility doesn't mean earning, it means usability, right? How are you taking this asset and applying it across, kind of different gameplay experiences? And it's not always bottom line oriented, but in our community, we get that all the time. Like, people are so myopically focused on ROI and profitability, they kind of miss the larger point, which is we are all in this together. We're building, for the greater good of the 3 billion, gamers in the world, and kind of changing that kind of, that meta or that mentality is really, really vital. I will tell you that the things that the Townstar people did, I think, are essential. Like, when you start a game and you look at the paradigm, you look at the competitive landscape, you're like, okay, let's learn, let's build something similar. And then you realize when you're on a path to nowhere, the sooner you course correct, the better, right? And it can be really, really painful. But if the people believe in the Townstar team, I know they've upped their development team size. I know they've really kind of got more aggressive on the roadmap. Like, that's what you want a development team to do. You want them to be, responsive. Yeah. You want them to be a little bit proactive, but okay, so they missed the boat there, but now they're being reactive, but in a helpful way. So we did the same thing on Blockchain Brawlers. Kind of 3 weeks in, we realized there was a massive exploit that was a modeled behavior, that was in behavior that wasn't modeled. It was so far beyond the pale of what I thought was possible. People are like, you should have accounted for that. I'm like, I never accounted for this being, 100x what we thought the value of it was. So therefore, we had to course correct, and we did. And in doing so, we saved the game, we saved the economy. Now it's thriving. But the people who were making a ton of money off that weren't saying, this is dangerous, please save it. They're saying, like, let's just, get what is good, and let's just drive a truck through this massive exploit that exists. The game, nobody says thank you. They say, how dare you? Right? And that's a backwards mentality. Like, if you believe in Townstar, if you love the experience, if you think the team is really well equipped to run this thing for many years, like, that's what you should care about. You shouldn't react to, gosh, they've taken this offline and they've turned off these earning nodes for a certain amount of time. Like, they had to do it, right? Because if your game is dead, you can't resuscitate it, but you can arrest the decline and have it go the other way. So I'm actually very much in favor of the changes that they made for the reasons that they made them. Yeah. It's never easy to rip off the Band-Aid.
No, exactly. It's always painful when the teeth are pulled, but it can save you a lot more pain down the road when there's not something decaying inside your mouth. So
exactly.
Okay. So another critique that we get a lot from gamers is, like, games are supposed to be fun, and the point of playing games is that they're fun. So if I'm a gamer who just cares about having enjoyment at the end of my day after a long day of work or something, why should I care about Web3 at all?
Yeah, and my counter to that is, because I came in with a similar mentality, but what you find is when you get involved in, it's funny, I want to reflexively call them projects, but they're games. People say to me all the time, tell me about your project. Well, first of all, your project's a game. Like, oh, interesting. Well, I'm an investor. Well, I'm looking for a gamer. Like, the language is actually really interesting if you kind of break it down and pay attention to it. But so I got involved in some early, P2E experiences, and you find that progression of accumulation of assets tied to value, tied to token. Like, that's a really gamer kind of oriented thing. Like, oh, I leveled up my character. Now I can beat higher levels. Like, I'm progressing, right? So progressing towards kind of inventory accumulation and value in that inventory, like, that's a gaming thing, right? That we talk about the gamification of decentralized finance. So for core gamers to look down the nose and say, well, that's not a game and that's not fun. Like, increasing your inventory is fun. Increasing your earning potential is fun. Like, there's fun in there. It's just not maybe like, my guy cut off your guy's head, like, which is what they want to do. But I'm telling you, for every player that has been involved in any core game and had to walk away from it or been shamed, like that's the worst thing. It's shamed into staying, right? Like if you look at Fortnite, if you look at World of Warcraft, if you look at these really, really long running games, they have an in-game counter, right? It's the number of hours you played, and it's almost never hours. It's days, it's weeks, it's months, it's even years. Like you stay in these games out of shame. Like, well, God, I'm 6 years in, 6 years of my life, I can't walk away now. Or I put $5,000 in, or I put $1,000 in, or I put, in some cases, $250,000 in. I can't quit now. I'm pot committed. Like you're not staying because it's fun. You're staying because you're guilting into staying, right? And now removing that stigma for players, like, oh, I can leave and it's not as painful to leave. It's much easier to let go of this, right? And now I'm getting this section of time back in my life. And time is a really valuable thing that we put a high we put a high price tag on valuing people's free time. And if they spend it with us, we want to validate that choice. And so that's why gamers should care. Like, subsidizing your gaming efforts and not being shamed into playing something that you maybe don't enjoy, like that's a really healthy thing for you, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I'm not sure if I've ever thought about it that way. I'm someone who's played League of Legends for like a decade, and I have put thousands of dollars into League of Legends skins. And I wonder if at some point I knew like I could sell all of my skins and get some amount of that money back. Like maybe I would have stopped playing League sooner, because even though it's a game I really enjoyed, there was a certain point where I started to hate it because it was stealing so much of my time and not giving me any value back in return. But I had put all this money into it and all of these hours getting good at it. And I felt like if I gave it up, like I would have been invalidating all of my last decade of playing it.
I played for 12 years and I want to leave for reasons not monetarily based, but that's a whole other kind of set of episodes, or maybe series of episodes. I've got like 19,000 games and I've stood right at headquarters 4 times. Mark Merrill's a friend of mine. So I've got a lot of deep thoughts on the flaws of League of Legends, but that's not this. But you make my point for me, right? Like you wanted to leave so many times, but you think about the skins that you've bought and the investment you've made there. It makes it hard to walk away. It's a gambler's mentality. I mean, you go to Las Vegas, most of us, and say, okay, I have N number of dollars to lose. And as soon as I do, that's fine. I'm going to walk away. And you know that. You know it's a sink. You know the casinos look the way they do because the odds are not in the player's favor, right? And you kind of make peace with the fact that I'm going to lose this much money and I'm going to chalk it up as entertainment value, right? And maybe I win, maybe I don't win, but I'm probably going to lose because 50.5% of the time is the best odds I can receive if I know how to play blackjack really, really, really well, or craps, right? So I think we make peace with ourselves as gamers that I'm going to invest in this, and that's my discretionary income. And I know I'm not going to have anything to show for it at the end of the day other than a series of memories and potentially some friendships that didn't exist beforehand.
Yeah, no, this is going to make a really big difference for people. Like even if I could get 40% out or something like that, like that could help pay for like a semester of college or something. And all of a sudden it's not like worthless time spent. There's some amount of value. Okay. So as a developer, because every single time I say anything about like a traditional game, me wanting it to move onto the blockchain, I made a video about how Grand Theft Auto 6, if they implemented like real cryptocurrencies or real ownership, like that could take that game to a whole new level. Now, I know it's a really big IP and it's a really big risk to move into this space. So when you have a lot to lose, you're a lot less likely to take that risk. But I've been lost.
Biggest motivation we have, right? Nobody wants to lose, so they do things to make sure they don't lose.
But
empty mentality, right? It's not hope for gain; it's fear of loss. Like, oh, I don't want to lose my job, so I'm going to work this. I don't want to lose my life, so I'm going to eat healthy. I don't want to lose my girlfriend or significant other, so I'm going to behave like this. I'm going to buy flowers. I'm going to do like fear of loss is this huge motivator, and it really paralyzes the traditional developers and publishers. It really, really does. And we should absolutely talk about kind of why that is, and if you want,
go into that.
Yeah. So look, I think that the thing that you'll find is that if you look out through the course of the kind of video gaming history, the last 30 to 35 years, kind of the existence of starting with the NES, right? Or even the Atari 2600. Like history is perfectly consistent on these platform transitions and these business model transitions and business model changes. Like the early movers are the winners, or the people that are native in the space are the winners, right? You can look at it from, cartridge-based to disk-based to downloadable content, or downloadable content to kind of, or 2D to 3D, right? And, freemium versus free to play. And like the people that are native there are the ones that always win because they're the ones that take the risk. So if we just go back like 10 years ago, right, you look at kind of the free to play world, it was social games, it was free to play mobile, it was all that stuff. But none of those market leaders were, EA or Tencent or Activision. It was Scopely and it was Supercell and it was Zynga. And like, these are hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue that the big publishers saw fit not to do. Like, free to play, dumb idea, it'll never work. Right? It'll never work. And they said that, years earlier about kind of, online play or multiplayer play or 3D gaming versus 2D gaming. Like, they always make these same excuses like that will never work because they don't understand it, right? They don't know how it's going to impact their business in a positive way. So if you're EA and you're running like, just say The Sims, or you're Take-Two and running Grand Theft Auto, it's like, it's easier for me to figure out how to get 10% more out of my existing franchise, right? Opposed to let's embrace this brand new model. That there's no North Star, there's no killer app, there's nothing that we can point to and say, oh, if we just do A, B, C, we succeed, right? They are so risk averse because a business model transition is an extinction event for a company, right? Even if you take Grand Theft Auto, like the original publisher of Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2 was BMG Interactive, Bertelsmann's group out of Germany. And Sam Hauser, who was just a producer at the time, says, I have this grand vision of Grand Theft Auto 3. It's sandbox play, it's do anything anywhere. They're like, that's terrible. Just do another 2D top-down, car stealing game. And he didn't want to. Like, fine, well, we don't want to do this. He's like, well, great. I'm going to take my development shop and my IP and go somewhere else. Like, literally, Grand Theft Auto, one of the biggest franchises of all time. Somebody in the publishing group said that's too risky. Do more of what you've already done because we know how it works. Yeah. Right. There's all sorts of examples in history and any kind of content creation play where somebody who was empowered to make a decision, didn't want to bet with their job, said, let's just keep doing more of what we know how to do, right? Yeah. And I mean, and that's why that is what that is. Like, EA literally told me, I had a conversation with a gal who's the GM of the entire Sims franchise. He said, and this is like 6-8 months ago, right? I said, The Sims is so perfect for NFT-based gaming. And we know that your players the last 5 years have set up websites where they have created, subscription packs and pirated content. Like, they're behaving this way already. Legitimize it, bring it from the dark into the light. And they said, we think NFTs are really destructive and we think our community is going to hate them. Well, fine, well, educate them. Don't let them provide value. What she's really saying is, I actually don't know how to monetize it and I don't know how to work. And I'm too worried about this mob mentality of saying, how dare you, EA?
Well, and
that's how you remove the fear.
It's crazy though that like the general sentiment right now is so negative. Like, when I make those videos about how GTA 6 would be epic if it was a Web3 game, it's not only the publisher that I know is scared, like the comments get filled with hate, like, no, you'll ruin my favorite game, like, oh, don't turn GTA into a money grab. And it's just like, people are scared as well.
Right. The knee jerk is, it's so bipolar. It's like, oh, this is safe and secure. No, it's a money grab where it's all about, pay to win. Yeah. Right. Guess what? A lot of games in this lifetime are pay to win. Right. And so that's how free to play gaming has really kind of succeeded, is the whales carry the minnows. But the reality is that somebody needs to say to them, look, it's not a money grab. It's about ownership, and ownership is tied to control, and control is tied to having to be, and you can sell your asset, or how about this? You give it to a friend of yours. Like, you've played this game for 2, 3, 4 years. Like, you want your buddies to come in and play. You give them all your stuff. Just transfer it to them. You feel good about it because you're giving things that you don't have any need for. And you could own, but you feel much better. Like, nobody talks about that in the pay to own space. Like, it's like, oh, what can I sell this for? What can I sell this for? What can I buy this for? What is this worth? There's this whole notion of social good, actually, that is really kind of underserved. Like, I played this game for 6 months a year. I've been through the grinds. I've accumulated all this stuff. I can sell it. Great. It feels native and it's easy to do. And there's like, or I could give it to a buddy of mine who actually I'm giving him something that has real world monetary value. So that makes me feel good about me, which is really important. And now, as a receiver, they're receiving something, like, you're literally giving them a gift. It's like a gift card. It's like, oh, I bought this for you. It's like, oh my God, dude, thank you so much. Like, the ability to do that in the broad daylight and not in these kind of digital dark alleys, like, is a really powerful thing that nobody wants to talk about that as well. I don't think that's a driver of the future business, but that's kind of an underserved or underappreciated notion of, gifting is a big deal. People like to gift things, right? And so, Web3 allows for that to happen because you now have complete control over the things that you've crafted, that have dropped for you, that you bought, you traded for, whatever. Like, that freedom is really, really powerful. And then you say, well, why should the publishers care about all this? Why should the publishers embrace it? Because I guarantee you right now, without question. The number one problem or the number one conversation in the halls of the marketing groups in every single one of these publishers is how do we get more players playing? Like we have an economy that works. We have a business model that works. We know what our purchase flows are. We've optimized all of our funnels. Guess what? If players feel like that they can come into your game and have greater control and have more kind of the ability to subsidize their play, and know that if you feed more people into the acquisition funnel, that there's more people available to buy their assets from them, like that's going to grow the overall player base at a fraction of the acquisition costs they're paying currently. And that's a really, really powerful thing. Like you had 1 million daily active users, great. Well, how do you get to 2 million? Well, we got to spend twice as much, right? Because no. Give them more power, give them more ownership, give them more leverage, give them more utility, not spend more. It's not an arms race. And so once publishers wrap their head around like, oh, this is the number one way to grow my player base by embracing the notion of ownership and subsidizing play, that's where it's going to flip for them. Now, somebody outside of the traditional gamer publisher world will have to build that, right? Whether it's big time, whether it's sandbox, whether it's blockchain brawlers, remains to be seen. But somebody has to say this is how it works. And then once those big guys see how it works, they're like, oh, we'll adopt that. But more important, just buy that group and then we'll get them. Because that's how it always works, right? They can't do it organically. They have to do it through acquisition.
No, we let someone else take all the legal risk, all of the monetary risk, and then after it succeeds, we just purchase them up and we get all the benefit. You gotta love it. But yeah, no, I think one of the reasons players, I think, have like turned against Web3 so much is, I mean, partly we're just in a bear market, and when you lose money, people get a little bit bitter. But I think the other thing is people.
Talk about losing money. Let me stop for a second. People talk about losing. Oh, I've lost so much money. So my players say to me all the time, like, "Oh, I've lost so much money." I'm like, "Okay, so you've sold something less than you paid for it." Well, no, I haven't. Well, then you haven't lost money.
True.
Well, the value of it's down. I'm like, right, but you haven't lost money. It's all paper, right. It's real. It's fiat currencies into an asset that you haven't sold. You don't have a loss that's been realized. So. Don't believe in the project, fine, exit, and there's no there. I get that. But if you believe in the team, if you believe in the construct, if you believe these markets will turn, then you don't sit there and go all the time, gee, Amazon, my stock is down, I've lost money. Like you're not selling that Amazon stock, you're just waiting for it to rebound. And if you believe in the games, if you believe in the kind of the vision and where it's going and what it's building towards, and you believe the crypto markets will turn, because they always do, because it's very cyclical. Wait it out. Like, be like, oh, I've lost so much money. I literally say, how much have you legitimately lost? Well, none. Right. Well, so then once I've lost money, like it drives me a little bit bonkers when people say, well, and then sold? No, I haven't sold. Okay, good. Let's be clear.
Yeah. The other thing is people seem to ignore the fact that like when I buy a League of Legends skin, I instantly lose 100% of that value. It goes all to the game. It's a one-directional funnel from the players to the game companies, and players will never see any of that again. So it's a guaranteed 100% loss on any dollar that you spend on a traditional game.
And here's what's funny with today's crypto players, right? That's a cosmetic. Like nobody will pay for a cosmetic. That's a terrible idea. I have to pay for this to help me win 1% more or 10% more or make me earn, 6% more. Like nobody will pay for like this. That's the biggest misnomer in the world. Everybody wants to tell you that, cosmetics don't matter. I'm like, tell that to the $5.2 billion in sales of Fortnite last year. Like tell that to to everybody who bought skins in League of Legends. Like people will pay for cosmetics, because you know what? Digitally flexing is cool. And when I go and I show up with my high noon Twitch skin and go, dude, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like, yeah, I feel really good at spending that, 900 RP, right? Like there's validation, right? It makes me feel good about me, like I said, and I do it because I have free will. And I know that I've got nothing coming back to me. And yet I still choose to do it. If that doesn't show the value and the power of asset ownership, now I can have it go the other way. Because if you're smart and you're right, you sell these for a limited number, right? These are NFT skins that you bought, and there's only 2,000 of them. And it's the really coolest thing ever. And you know that there's 300,000 Twitch players, Twitch, the ADC, not Twitch, the streaming service. Sorry, I'm a Twitch main, so sometimes I
get No, that's a good thing to clarify. Right.
So if they sell 2,000 of those skins, they know there's 300,000 players. They know it's the coolest thing ever, and it's their legendary version of that skin. Now all of a sudden, that's going to go up in appreciation because a certain number of those Twitch players want to hold on to it. So now all of a sudden, there's only 100 for sale. It's a scarcity thing. Like they should bring that into the world, and that's what we want to do. That's what we want to show, and that's what we want to talk about.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously in the traditional space right now, all the value goes to the game creator, and in Web3, it's allowing for some of that value to be earned by players. So I mean, obviously, more money is going to go in than comes out because like money has to pay developers and stuff like that. But how could it be better for studios to let players even get 50% of the value that the ecosystem generates?
Yeah, and the players are actually getting over 90%, right? Which is a really powerful thing for the players. And like I said, I think that works because, first of all, the publisher is clipping the ticket on every single sale forever. So think about it. You painted a Van Gogh painting in the 1700s, and through provenance, you know that you're the original painter, and every single time it gets sold, you get a piece of it. In fact, just continues to go up and up and up and up in value. Your flat rate percentage goes up and up and up and up and up. So that's a really kind of powerful kind of thing to kind of wrap your head around a little bit. That's one. But two is, look, there are primary sales, right? And, you know, the really smart developers and publishers will figure out, what does that starting asset want to be within reason? What is the price of it? And then how do we sell as many within reason to kind of fund and cover the cost of development? And then you have this whole token distribution model, which people talk about, you know, kind of the tokenomics on a project, which I think a lot of time that gets maligned, or it's not fully understood. Like on our project, we hold back 20% of the token kind of, emissions to the team. It's not to pay them, but it's for user acquisition. And so again, we are taking that token and we're using it to fund, player acquisition behaviors and practices and promotions. And so the model does work. You have to be much smarter about it than I think a lot of people are. You have to be very like you can have this really offensive example. Like if you look at our friend Peter Molyneux, right, who's building the Landmark, which, Peter's got this wonderful development history, maybe a little bit more checkered the last 10 years. I mean, worth more than God, and so he doesn't have to do this work, but he's coming out with this Metaverse, right? It's called the Landmark, and he has $153 million in land sales. Like, to me, that's offensive. Like, he's got all of your money and no risk. And at some point, you'll probably get a game. At some point, we hope it works. At some point, we hope it performs, but there's no developer risk. So you can go extreme and get $150 million to fund your development out of crowdsourced ways, or you're really smart to say, look, we're going to do limited pack sales. We're going to take a little bit of the secondary market transactional fees. We're going to do these things that are currency sinks. We're going to do these things that are currency faucets, or create this really kind of nice blending of different economic strategies that really lend to getting as many people into your game as humanly possible without, doing things that are bad or exploitative. And once you strike that balance, like, the model works, I assure you.
Yeah. No, I think it's part of this concept of, like, right now, game developers are taking 100% of a small pie. But if you allow the actual gamers to get 80% of that, it's like in the short term, it's like, oh no, they're going to take 80% of our pie. Like, how are we going to stay in business? But then you realize, wait, the pie's going to 20x when we give them 80%. And then all of a sudden, our 20% is bigger than the 100% that we were taking beforehand. And
here's a really powerful way to think about that. There's the paradigm that we put out there that we know resonates really well because it makes a ton of sense. But and we champion this cause a lot, or we bang this drum a lot, is that we tell the players, you are the producers, you're the content creators, you're the vendors in the game. And know that for us to make money, you need to make money. For us to transact, you need to transact. So now we have an alignment of interest. It's not like, oh, we made all our money, good luck. Right? We actually have risk. And so they know that we have risk. They know that we could have sold way more assets, or we could have charged way more, or whatever that was. Like, we know that our financial success is aligned with their financial success. So all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait, the developer is vested in what I do, right? They're interested in what I do. So therefore, they're going to do things to make sure that I, on an individual basis, have success and have traction. And they're trying to increase my retention, my engagement, my ability to sell or buy or trade. Like, are very much aligned in that regard. We have risk and they have risk. We share that risk, but know that we can pull those levers that can influence outcomes. We'll do that to the benefit of the player, because when the player wins, we win. Like, our winning, we don't win in a silo and say, haha, we made a ton of money, good luck. Right? And so as soon as you have, like, détente, if you will, if both sides are equally kind of sharing the risk and the upside, it's a really good place to be. And we talk about that all the time. Like, you'll succeed because we need you to succeed, right? Without you, we don't succeed. That's a really powerful way to think about it that we often tell people. And that's what we actually show through our practice.
What do you think is the biggest thing holding back NFT games or Web3 games right now?
There's a couple things. One is there's just this general lack of education to the masses, right? Like, and it's really kind of, they all live within their own echo chamber, right? If they all say how dangerous everything is, then that's all they hear, then that's all they're going to believe. And the publishers are doing nothing to educate, right? And they're doing nothing to show and to demonstrate the power of kind of ownership, because it's actually not good for them because they don't know how to build that model. So this vicious cycle feeds itself, right? So let's start with that. That's one. But two, there's no gameplay paradigm that says, see how much fun this is. And that's why I said, when you see some of these examples of kind of, real game developers coming into the space, at some point that will change. And people are like, holy cow, this is really fun. One of the ways that we're doing it is when we talk about blockchain brawlers, it's really terrible that the name is called blockchain brawlers, because we never mention it as a Web3 game. We never talk about the NFT piece. We talk about, this is a really fun to play game designed by Richard Garfield. Like, if you love Magic the Gathering, know that the literally the mental math genius behind Magic the Gathering and that construct is coming to our world in our product. We don't say it's, we talk about it being objectively great, not relatively great. Like, this is a great game. It's fun to play. It's really, really compelling. It's clever. It's got all these interesting player choices, all the things that we know appeal to gamers. We never once said, and you have to have a wallet, and then you have to go to a centralized exchange, and then you've got to buy a fungible token, like friction all down the line. Come in here. So as a result, one of the things we're doing from our paradigm is we're building this free-to-play kind of funnel that come in, and it's got IAP, and you're buying things that aren't NFTs. They're game assets, and it allows you to play. Like, holy cow, I love this. This is so much fun. Like, you want to know a secret. You really want to own things that you can buy and sell and trade. Just flip this bit. And you're a wallet owner, and all these things that you bought are now NFTs. And now you can do with them what you want. Whoa, that was way easier than I thought. Like, wait, NFTs are bad. No, NFTs are not bad. What do I do with it? Whatever you want. Wait, why? How? No, NFTs are the Antichrist. No, they're not. Showing them great, right? We're having this nice onboarding flow into a game they want to play, right? So we lead with game, we kind of follow with economies second. But you have to show those games. And by the way, Will Wright, I don't know if you saw the announcement. So Will Wright, literally the creator of The Sims, came out and said, I'm building an NFT-based gaming experience. And if that's not the ultimate establishment kind of on to our side of the ledger, it's going to, it's a matter of if, not when.
No,
it's not a matter of if, but it is a matter of when. It's going, the tide is going against the traditional publishers, traditional gamers. And there's going to be some great experiences that I want to be a part of that, but somebody has to lead the way. We think that's
adoption S curves always start slow, but when they start accelerating, it always blows people's minds. Okay,
there's a fusion of innovation. If you look at that in terms of early adopters, innovators, laggards, late adopters, all that stuff, it follows that same distribution.
Okay, so obviously anytime people can get value out of a game, though, people are going to exploit it, and you've talked about this a little bit, but that exploitation has come from like the actual projects. It's not only players trying to exploit games, but there's been games that have tried to exploit players, especially when Axie Infinity was like at the prime of its success. Like, the number of games coming out of the woodwork, trying to pay for sponsorship, trying to get people to buy their NFTs was insane. And a lot of them were not legit. And I think that has also created a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths that were excited about this, got burned, and are now like, no, never again. So I guess my question for you is how do you spot a scam project? How do you know when a project is gonna rug pull versus gonna be really legit? What are some of the signs that you would tell viewers to look for?
It's a great question, right? Is there a formula for a successful quote unquote project? I don't know that there's some hallmarks that we always pay attention to. Is first of all, who is the team? They'll say, oh, members from EA and Blizzard, and like, no, who is the team? Like, show me their LinkedIn profile, show me their Moby game gamology. Like, let me know, what have they done? Where have they come from? What are their beliefs? What is their stance? And how well financed is this company? Like, games that do rug pulls because they need the money, they found an exploit, they're not real game developers. Like, if it, walks like a duck and looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck, right? And so all these rug pulls come from these web developers that were opportunistic, that don't tell you who they are. If it seems to be true and they're feeding people in the funnel and creating FOMO, that's exactly what's going to happen. And it's happened 99.9% of the time. Like, I don't know, it's a sustainable kind of play to earn game. That's why we never talk about play to earn. We think those are words that will never be spoken again in the halls of Wax, like ever. Play to earn is terrible, and it's really hurtful. I don't think traditional gamers come into these games and say, oh, I got burned, I'll never do that again. Like, what they do is they say, see, I told you it's a scam, right? They never even dip their toe in the water, right? They just go, oh, Axie cratered, therefore all play to earn gaming is terrible. Like, well, Axie wasn't built to sustain, right?
Yeah.
The hallmarks of their economy. The question that players should ask themselves when they go in is, okay, if there really is NFT appreciation is tied to token appreciation, tied to token stability, okay, what is the equilibrium that exists to make sure that supply and demand are aligned, right? Because what has happened in every single one of these projects without fail is it's all inflationary economies. And it relies on more players being fed into the funnel, creating this pyramid, like literally of players, like that continue to feed all the way up the chain. And if you're in those projects early enough and you get out at the right time, then you can be very financially successful. That's not a great experience, because if you've made a ton of money, there's a bunch of people who have lost a ton of money. And that's just, you know, you don't want to be in a situation where one side is way too happy and one side is way too sad. You need both sides have risk, both sides have again, like I said, kind of mutual shared interests. And maybe that's not capitalism, but that's gaming. And so I would tell you, look for teams that are transparent. Look at them that they're really engaged. How active are they in the Discord channel and on Twitter and all in the places you want them to be? How visible are they? How transparent are they? How aggressive and robust is their roadmap? What does their funding look like? Talk to them about their economy and how are they working towards, you know, appreciation of assets, and just see if they talk about the world differently, and see if they lead all the time with economy. Right? If they're always talking about economy every minute of every day, and it's like, oh, and then by the way, you'll play in arena-based combat. Like, if gameplay is an afterthought, that would scare the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Like, I love the notion of an action RPG where I get to own everything and I get to do all these things. Like, everybody knows that if you look at Torchlight or Diablo or any of those kind of games, like, there's a there. And now somebody's bringing that to Web3 in a big way, in a really thoughtful way, that like, okay, this has got all the marks of something that's really, really enjoyable to play. Like, that's my first thought. I don't say, well, get my money back in 30 days, because that's not my focus. I'm going to play those kinds of games anyway. I play that game and I get to own my stuff. You got it, right?
Yeah.
So look for that. Look for transparency. Look for openness. Look for consistency in communication. Look for, you know, people, you know, letting you know what's up. It's
who have a good track record. Because like, if someone has throughout their life succeeded over and over again and like created all of these great games that people loved playing, chances are they probably have like pretty good odds to be able to do that again. Whereas if you've seen someone make bad games that no one liked playing, or just has never made a game before, and they're promising you all this stuff, like, the odds get a lot worse that they're going to be able to do something they've never done before. So yeah, that's some really good advice there.
Yeah, and look, the nice thing is all those games that are kind of mining games or click farming games or what have you, those are all going to die. They're going to be dead, and you won't have to worry about it as a player anymore. Like, you're going to, you know, the paradigm is going to be legitimate developers with legitimate game ideas tied to NFT utility. You're going to hear that bandied about and trumpeted, and you're going to know, like, oh, cool. It's like this is, and I'm telling you, like, all my friends from the industry that are coming into this side, there's some unbelievably great, like, legitimately great developers coming. So you won't have to say, is this project a scam or not? Because the production value, the assets, the onboarding, the funnels, the gameplay trailers, like, all these things are going to look and feel so unbelievably sexy and cool. You won't ever have to question, is this legitimate? Like, oh, wow. This is gameplay footage. I get it. I see it. The developer is very known. Like, you'll feel very good about it. Like, you don't look at a PlayStation game and go, well, what do you actually do? You come in, you look at what are the reviews, right? Hey, do I want to spend this $19.95 or $59.95 based on, oh, I know the IP, or this is that same studio that did that? Like, we do those same exercises in retail console. We just don't, you know, apply it to the crypto space because it's a little bit more Wild West. But it'll happen. same level of rigor will come to our world.
Yeah.
Of that, I'm sure. And the great will stand apart, and they'll win.
Yeah, and I think it'll be a lot harder too for these scam projects to get any sort of traction when there already are legit fun games that people can play, like that are already taking up the mind share. At that point, the only way to break in is going to be to make a fun game. Yeah, a better game that draws people's attention. You're not going to be able to take them with promises.
Right. We say the same thing all the time. Like I know as a gamer now, I'm so invested in kind of 3 or 4 different games from a time standpoint that to replace a game in my rotation, it's got to be better than what I'm currently doing.
Yeah.
And so that's a high bar, and I think that's the mentality of a lot of gamers. And so knowing that, like, yeah, you'll try something opportunistic. Go, what's the hubbub all about? But if something's going to make it into your, like, this is part of my, I wake up in the morning and I do these things, or before I go to bed, or when in the cracks of my life, I do, like, to replace that, you've got to be objectively a better use of somebody's time. And Web3 gaming has the real opportunity to do that. And I think it will, but you have to lead with what is that entertainment proposition, not what is that financial proposition.
Yeah. Yeah. So so we talked about Axie a little bit and how it was set up in an unsustainable way. I think partly their success kind of did them in, like there was just too much success too early, where like they had all of these development plans to add more utility to SLP, to like create all of these things, but the game just blew up before they could. And it was almost like they were just too successful for their own good. And that's what made it such a big crash at the end. But I know a lot of gamers who watch this channel, like they might be able to easily tell, like, oh, this is a fun game, this isn't, when they play it. But their understanding of economics is not necessarily on that same level. So how would you give them advice on finding games that can actually be sustainable long term? Like, what should they be looking for after they know, okay, this game is fun, I like playing it, to know like this might actually be able to last for a decade?
Yeah, look, I think that if I were to look at kind of Axie Infinity, way back when, right, 18 months ago, and look at Sky Mave, this is what, 3 people in Vietnam kind of thing. It's a website developer, and they have no gaming history. I don't actually know their full story other than
they had a Shark Tank investor invest a lot into them, which kind of gave them a lot of notoriety and trust. So there was like some like big names that like saw that initial success, put some money behind them. And I think it made people maybe ignore some of the red flags about the economic sustainability. Like, if this guy trusts them, then they're going to be able to figure it out. And who knows, maybe they still will be able to.
I don't think they will, because I think their game is built on a house of sand. And I think there's much better versions of what they've built. Like, if you think it's the gameplay, like look at Illuvium as an example, which you talked about, recently. Like, that's going to be such a better version of what Axie wants to be, right? The whole Pokemon-esque-ness of it, but combined into a 3D world with unbelievable visuals and the gacha mechanic and all the things that they have. Like, that's going to be an Axie killer if you like that type of kind of gaming construct. Like, I would just go there and say, wow, game over. Like, there's no reason to do anything outside of Illuvium. It's just so unbelievably beautiful and well-produced. Like, you got me. Right? Like, and I think that when you review the assets, and again, if you look at, Illuvium from a development content standpoint, like you go to their channel on YouTube and you look at all the things that exist, if you don't feel good about that game, from understanding how all those things flow and what that wants to be, like your spidey senses are right on, like, wow, there's something here and I'm interested and I want to learn more and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to try it. Right, because this may just be it. In terms of adding projects in advance, like people say, oh wow, I really missed the Axie wave. Like some investors, like if you look at there's a famous investor on Facebook who didn't invest in Facebook until it was worth $800 million.
Yeah,
like that was his investment threshold. Like, okay, now I think they're going to make it. Like, oh, you used that at 10 million, and it went up to 8. It's like, right, but at 10 million valuation could have been a massive failure. 800 million now, I feel like they got enough market traction. You can take that same lens and look at Axie. People are like, oh wow, you really missed. Like, there's people who probably rode the Axie wave and kept like, oh, it's going to go back up, and they didn't sell at the peak. They didn't sell on the way out. They stayed to the end, and those people actually are just getting hammers. Like, well, I've broken even on my $50 investment. It could have been worth 300,000, but I thought it was going to be worth 3 million. Like, you hear these stories all the time, and again, because it's the investor mentality, not this gamer mentality, and so. It's really hard to tease those things apart because it's really intoxicating to think about, people in the Philippines are now, literally making more money playing Axie Infinity a few hours a day than they do during their day job. And it was really the economy, and like all the good that came out of that, there's a lot of bad that came out of that as well. So have to be careful.
Yeah, I think it can't be stressed how important a game being fun, that can't be stressed enough, because even if the economics aren't perfect, like if a game is fun and you have players that just love jumping into the world every day, guess what? The developers are going to have enough time to fix whatever they need to fix economy wise, because people love the world and want to spend time in that world. And that is just the most valuable thing, and is going to make things be able to survive.
Yeah, Jake, I'll tell you, I get into not arguments, but really interesting discussions in our Discord community about our players who are so ROI focused. God bless them, they can't help themselves, and they say, unless there's a positive ROI, kind of outcome, you're not going to be able to attract any players. And I'm like, well, you should know that 3 billion gamers last year spent $171.8 billion on games they didn't own a single asset in. Like, you can tell me that this is your belief, and I know you believe that. I know that's your perception, but I will tell you, there's an entire industry with 3 billion people that's spending nearly $200 billion. By the way, on the way to $1 trillion in 2030. Yeah, and not own a single asset. Yeah. So you can argue with me all day long. History is not on your side. Like, now imagine a certain percentage of that revenue is now available to be brought back into the player's wallet. Like, if that doesn't excite you about the power and the growth and the potential, by the way, going from 3 billion gamers to going to 3.5 billion or 4 billion gamers or 5 billion gamers, or more than half the planet are gamers because of this ability to own, I think is a very real story. Like, you talk about how do you grow 3 billion out of there's 7.5 billion people in the world. Like, it's not almost 50%. Like, let them know that, it's now going to cost them less to do the things that they love. Right. Back to the entertainment part, right? You love things, and now you get to do it at a discount. I'll do it all day long because people love discounts on entertainment. Yeah.
Okay, just 2 more questions, and we'll move on to some questions about Wax specifically. So this kind of leads into what you were just saying, though. But when you think about gaming 10 years or 20 years from now,
right?
How do you envision it looking? Like, how is the world going to be different because of how gaming is different?
Yeah, look, I think it's real easy to go Ready Player One is the paradigm, and I think we all live in that fantasy. I'll tell you, I'm a huge VR guy. I think it's the best way to game in the world, minus, like, for at 30 minutes at a time, it has to be kind of more scalable, it has to be more accessible, the footprint has to be changed. But that level of immersion, right, that level of connectivity, that level of social interactions, like, it's so powerful in terms of evolving the art form. I think at some point the form factor, the glasses, the accessibility, access to information, the content, the immersion, like, it's going to be where the world is going to be in kind of 10 to 20 years, whether it's led by kind of Decentraland or the Sandbox or Meta, right, is all to be determined. But I think that, in my mind, I've always found that when I've interacted with my Rift S, I'm like, oh, I love this. I can't do this for 4 hours at a time like I can. It's something on my desktop or on mobile. 5 minutes at a time, because it's just too much friction there. But in terms of just pure immersion and getting lost in a world that I literally lose sense of time, like, it happens, it's powerful, it's transformative. If you've never had that, like, there's this real epiphany as a gamer that you play, whether it's Beat Saber or you watch an interactive movie or whatever, like, it is so unbelievably, like, seductive in that regard. Like, this is the future of gaming. There's too much friction here today, but I can see in 10 to 12 years, like, this is what it's all about. Because, again, social connectivity matters as well. Like, if you look at World of Warcraft, it's probably, people talk about social games. World of Warcraft's the most social game ever. There's 30 jobs. You can only own 2. You're in a guild. You need somebody to enchant. You need somebody to imbue. You need somebody to cook. You need somebody to leathercraft. You need somebody to venture in the instances with, or to do the raiding with. Like, it's all about doing things together. And that game ran, or still is running, 20 years later. Like, that's the footprint of the social connected nature of where we're going to be. And it works. It always worked and will always continue to work, because as humans, we're wired that way. Now do it in a more immersive way, where you're literally in Azeroth, or you're in whatever world you want to picture yourself. That suspension of disbelief becomes that much easier, because I'm actually there, and I don't have to worry about my mundane, one-story walk-up that I live in that's dingy and dark. Like, I'm in this fantastic world. It makes it's escapism at its finest.
Now, eventually, on-chain gaming interviews will be held in the metaverse. And especially with like eye tracking and stuff, like right now we're like, when I'm looking at you and you're looking at me, like, we're not looking at each other in the eye, because in order to do that, you have to look at the camera. But imagine like we're actually sitting somewhere in an incredible world, an incredible set, and we can actually be looking at each other and get this sense of presence. Like, it's going to be so epic.
it's so much more emotionally connecting us, right? And not only are we connecting and having, but now all of a sudden we have more of a tangible relationship, because I feel like I had a coffee with you, or I sat down with you, or we just together. Like you're going to build real, connectivity that's going to be hard to ignore and hard to deny. And as a species, like we all want to be connected. Like this is total kind of in the ditch, but if you look at communities that have the longest lifespan, they are like little neighborhoods in Italy where all they do is, they drink wine and eat bread, but they do it all together.
Yeah.
Right. There's a community, and their level of happiness and their quality of life is so much higher than anybody else's because of those social connections that they share. Like that's the best way to live, right? There's health benefits. There's all these things that stem from that, and being allowed to connect. I mean, VidCon is great, but boy, VR is 10x the standard stuff for the reason you stated.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Wax specifically a little bit here. So first of all, can you just tell the viewers a little bit about how you first got involved with Wax? Like, what made you excited to be the like head of gaming for Wax?
It's a really funny story. So kind of, last year, a buddy of mine who runs all of Amazon Gaming said, "What do you know about P2E?" I'm like, "P2E? Like, you mean pay to win?" He goes, "No, P2E, pay to earn." I'm like, "I have no idea what play to earn is." He's like, "Oh, it's this new wave and you should look into it." Now, from anybody else, I would have just brushed off the comment because I'm like, yeah, whatever. I've been there, done that. I know all things gaming. But this guy is somebody I consider a mentor who's unbelievably smart. He's really, really gifted, and he's has incredible insights. And like I said, he runs all of gaming studios at Amazon, and so he's in a position of influence, and he knows what he's talking about because he hears and sees a lot of pitches all the time about kind of emergent businesses and technologies and platforms. And so I started looking into it, and I'm like, oh, the standard story, Farmers World and Axie Infinity, and all that. And so a buddy of mine, that I've worked with in the past was at Wax, and I said, "You're on the blockchain, right? Like Wax is a protocol, and I'm starting to learn about pay to earn. And, what do you?" He's like, "Oh, are you looking to get in?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, maybe. Tell me more." He's like, "Well, we're looking to get in the game space right now. We just do digital collections, and we do these things called virtuals, right? Like you buy an NFT, and there's a real world analog. It's Funko and Hot Wheels and all the things that make sense." And the more I talk, the more I'm like, oh my God, this is the promise of kind of asset ownership to gamers. Like, really, really compelled by what they were doing. And I said, if you're looking to, get into the gaming space, you don't have anybody lead that initiative, I'd love to talk to you about that. And they said, yeah. And like literally a week later, they're like, "Here's your offer. Let's go." I'm like, "Let's go." Like really, it was exciting. The thing that I say a lot in these kind of interviews is, we always look for a cause that is greater than our own, right? Something bigger than ourselves. Yeah. And leading and driving kind of, asset ownership for every gamer in the world forever, and making that part of a sea change that cannot be resisted. It's something that we want to do. And so to me, that's the cause that's greater than myself. I saw it in free-to-play gaming when all my friends in traditional gaming said free-to-play is the dumbest idea ever and it'll never work, and you'll be looking for a job with us again in 10 months. Keep your resume update. Yeah. I'm like, "You're wrong." Like I said, I've heard before, like I love to be a part of that free-to-play movement, just like I love being part of the play-to-own movement. And we can craft a North Star or have lessons that people learn from. Yeah. Makes us feel really good and validates kind of what we're doing. And Wax is all about that.
It's really interesting to me that like the same people that were behind innovating with free to play are also the first to jump on board with asset ownership. It's like, I don't know, like some people just seem to like see into the future a little bit better. I mean, I was a kid when free to play was becoming big because I'm a lot younger. But I remember like
you don't have to drive that point home. I think the audience realizes you're a lot younger than me.
Yeah, fair.
I'm teasing.
You look great, but when I was
feel young at heart. How's that?
Yeah, no, you sound young and excited as well. Right. I think our spirits align a little bit there. But I would get so frustrated when there was a new game coming out and it wouldn't be free to play after like free to play had already been proven to me to be so much better. And like I've been making YouTube videos for over a decade, and like there would be games I was excited for, and then as soon as they announced it's not going to be free to play, I would have to like give up my excitement for it because I knew the audience wasn't going to be as big. So if I made content about it, there wouldn't be as much viewership, and it was just so down every time that a game I was excited for was like not going to be free to play. And now it's the same thing again with asset ownership. It's like, oh, this game looks so cool. Wait, you're not going to let me own my stuff? And I think that like the general population eventually followed and had that same feeling as me about free to play. And it's going to happen again with player ownership, but we just...
Of course. Yeah, look, you're not alone, by the way. Like there's that whole moment of like Apple does this, promotional email me, games we care about this week. And I know a lot of that's promoted content, but every once in a while, they like, these are things we've seen that we're really excited about. And it is in their best interest to put the best content in front of their consumers. So I'll go and look at the 9 games. I get an email every week. I'll go to the App Store. And the ones that say $4.99 or $1.99, I'm like, nope. I don't care how much you love it, how much you think it's great.
Yeah.
Give me what games you care about that you think are innovative and are movers and shakers, and I'll download every single free-to-play game and try it. I'll try it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, what have you. And sometimes they make it into the rotation, sometimes they don't. But I'm just like you. You put that paywall up there when it's been proven. By the way, there are so many now best practices on how to monetize in free-to-play gaming that you can map to every single genre in the world forever. Like, it's just lazy if you don't do that. It's like, well, we don't want to live operate. Like, so what? You got to be committed to your game. This is not a fire and forget drill of, kind of 2006. This is 2022, and the world has changed, and adapt or die. And a lot of these companies are dying. And they do it because it's lazy. It's the path of, least resistance and all that stuff.
Okay, so how is Wax different from other blockchains like Ethereum or like Solana? And I know Ethereum and Solana are very different, but how would you describe Wax and what differentiates it as far as a player or a developer is concerned?
Yeah, I think from a player standpoint, Wax was purpose built for gamers. Like, and that's easy to say. And it's like, well, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you look at our transactional volume and velocity, like, it's not like a layer 2. It's not like Ethereum. It's built for 8 to 10,000 transactions a second, and it is never with any gas fees, right? And it is delegated proof of stake. So that means you've got to put some resources up ahead of time. But we've also moved to a pay to buy model. Like if you want to pay just fractions of a penny to approve a transaction, you don't actually have to stake those resources. But the resources you're staking, you can get back or you can sell. And so it's a little bit different in that regard. But the point about gamers, right? Us as a gamer, like if I play, say I'm in a corridor shooter or something like that, that's a pay to win style game, and I lose again, and I lose again. The first thing I'm like, God damn it, I'm going to start buying the DFG 9000. I want it right now, and I'm going to jump right back into that arena, and I'm going to blow that MFer's head off. Like that is a gamer, we're very impulsive that way. But when you do something on Ethereum or a layer 2, it's like, yeah, well, you'll get that eventually. Like, I don't want a digital cooling off period. I want it right now, right? And so Wax transactional, like I said, volume and velocity, you're getting your assets delivered to you in seconds, right? It's a very game like, yeah, I bought this and now I own it. Of course I do, right? That's what gamers are used to. But on these non-Wax solutions, a lot of times we see, like, sometimes they're waiting, 30 seconds or a couple minutes. Sometimes they're waiting a couple hours. And in worst cases, if there's surge transactions, right? They're waiting a couple days. Now that's fine if you bought a Bored Ape or a CryptoPunk or it's a collection, you don't need it immediately, right? But if you're a gamer and you want an asset because you're trying to clear a level or you're trying to beat a boss or you're trying to do something and you have to wait, that's such a non-gamer thing, right? Like we want things like I pay for it, why don't I get it? And in the free-to-play space, that's how it works. There's an in-game store, you hit buy, it deducts your currency, it's in your inventory, you use it. Yeah. That's the Wax paradigm, right? And a lot of people don't realize that Wax does. So if you take every single protocol in the world that does every single transaction ever, it doesn't really matter, gaming or not gaming. Wax does about 52% of every single approved transaction across every single blockchain in the world. Like we do about 25 million transactions a day. Like look at Ethereum.
What are most of those transactions? Like
75% of them are gaming based.
Okay. Wow.
If you look at the top 10 games in the world in terms of transactional volume, right? It's Alien World, it's Splinterlands, it's things like that. They're all on Wax. Like people don't go, I didn't realize, like Wax is like the best kept secret in the world, which kills me.
Yeah.
I actually want
no, people don't talk about it much, and I'm part of the problem here. I'll admit it.
Right.
Hopefully, we're remedying that somewhat here.
Yeah, and look, we believe in a cross-chain world. So we're not trying to get people to come to Wax and only Wax, and we're not tribalistic around Wax. Like we think Wax, by the way, we actually use Wax to our advantage. So you'll see us selling assets on at some point Polygon, Solana, Ethereum, Flow, Immutable, like insert kind of protocol here. We will sell assets there for their gamers and their players to come in and use on Wax. So we say utility on Wax, liquidity everywhere. Like we don't care where you buy and sell your assets. That your wallet, you're comfortable, your shopping experience great. Use it on Wax. We'll have bridges and/or wallet interfaces that allow you to do that in a really seamless way. It's like God, to really date myself, if you go back to the kind of the mid '90s, right, when kind of the internet was Web 1 was a thing.
When I was born.
Yeah, right. Like people talk about like search engines, like it's all about Gopher or Mosaic or Netscape, like browsers and stuff like. To use a browser, to use a search engine like Ask Jeeves or whatever, right? You have to type in like 33 different words on a certain search engine to find hopefully the one thing you're looking for. Now they all share these algos and the spiders all kind of work similarly, but you couldn't now you show up and your stuff works on the internet like, oh, Andre Agassi tennis shoe Wimbledon 97. Here's on eBay 10 different people who are selling it. The old days you could never do that. Like Web3 is the same way. Like you want to just show up and your stuff to work.
Yeah.
You don't go, well, what protocol is it? And what wallet do I need? And where do I buy the NFT? And, how do I buy this cryptocurrency? And, is my bank going to turn this down? And what, is the regional blocking? And there's all these things that prevent mass adoption that we are doing our part to work on to make sure that mass adoption is a thing. It doesn't matter what chain you have. It doesn't matter what wallet you have. Come into our world. We'll have all these things will be completely transparent to you. It doesn't matter what's going on behind the curtain. You'll just show up. If you bought something on, Magic Eden, it works here on Wax, no problem, have fun. Like that's really kind of the paradigm that we're pushing towards. So it's really a cross-chain world, but utilities should start and end on Wax, but we don't care where liquidity is. And so that's really what we're pushing and promoting.
That's cool. So does that mean that like you guys actually don't even look at other chains like Solana as a threat? It's almost like more like we're all gonna kind of succeed together, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, we have actually really good personal relationships with the people who run the gaming groups at Polygon and Solana and all these chains, and we really feel bad for them. Like we look at all the challenges that, like Solana, like, what's Solana's uptime? It's a disaster. If you've ever tried to integrate anything on Solana, it's really, really hard. If you look at Polygon Studios, God bless them, they are great. They're some of the best, smartest people in the world, but they actually don't have a studio initiative that's building content, so they don't eat their own dog food, so to speak. But we understand as a layer 2, there's a lot of value that they have, and a lot of customers that like their protocol for the reasons that they like it. And we think that we can work with them together, but we don't view them as a threat necessarily. We view them as a partner, right? And we know that there's things that they need and they want, whether it's marketplace integration, whether it's, more wallet adoption, whether it's, content. Like there's certain tools and content that they need to help, again, drive, because they want the same thing. They also want mass adoption, right? And in my mind, if we all work together, and we always lead our kind of business development conversations with when we're talking to those kinds of companies, like what's important to you. If we know what's important to them, if we know what their strategic initiatives are, and we can build things that ladder up and help them kind of solve their problem, and they can go to their senior manager and say, oh, look, remember that thing that we said was really important to us this quarter? Wax is helping us achieve that. Like that's how we see the world. So again, we see very much as partners, not competitors. And look, the Wax blockchain has never been down. The Wax blockchain has never been hacked. There's all these things that we're 4 years old. We're the biggest and the best at a lot of things that people don't realize. And why don't they realize it? Because we didn't raise a $500 million round with, Andreessen Horowitz and get a lot of earned media. We just got performed. And so, we let our content do the talking.
One thing I've realized as a YouTuber is that those that get that early viral video or that like super early success, they seem to pop up out of nowhere. They also seem to disappear out of nowhere as well. And it's the slow burn, those that like are working at it and figuring it out, and like it takes them 5, 6, 7 years to like crack the algorithm and like figure out a content niche that works. Those are the creators that are still going to be here 40 years from now. I'm kind of getting that same vibe from the Wax team from this interview.
And look, and programming like this helps us, right? Like the thing that we want to do is we make sure that we become a little bit more of a household name, but we don't need to be like your only solution, right? But I will tell you, the Wax Cloud wallet right now is the easiest, most powerful wallet in the world. If you actually want to see the NFTs you own within the wallet, you can't do it on MetaMask, right? But you can do it on a Wax Cloud wallet. You can look at your every single NFT you've ever owned, and you can look at it, you can buy it, sell it, and trade it from there. But to set up a Wax Cloud wallet is, if you have Facebook Connect, great. If you have, Discord ID, if you have your Twitch account, all the OAuth that exists, like it's like 2 clicks, like, oh wow, my wallet setup, that was a little too easy. What am I missing? Like, you're not missing anything. You don't have to go watch a YouTube tutorial about how to do this. Like, just show up. It's very Web 2. Like, so we have a lot of Web 2 in our DNA in terms of usability and adoption. And once people come in, they're like, wow, why didn't I know about this sooner? I wish everybody thought and acted this way. But they don't have to, because we're going to build, ports and bridges to experiences. So it's really frictionless for the consumer. We actually start the customer and work backwards to from the problem. So that's a little bit of a differentiated approach that we.
If I'm a gamer right now watching this interview, how would I get started in the Wax ecosystem? What's the first step?
It's really simple. You go to wax.io, and there's a thing that says Wax Cloud Wallet. You click it. You set up your Wax Cloud wallet by literally, using your OAuth, which is another click or two, and then you've got your Wax Cloud wallet account, and then that's your consumer interface for every game on the Wax ecosystem. Like, there's like 100,000 dApps in the Wax ecosystem. Like, it's a little bit too much, right? And we're working on discovery engines and segmenting content, but it's literally that simple. Go to wax.io, click on the wallet, set up the wallet, which again is 2 clicks, and you're done. Like, it could not be easier. But we would selfishly tell you to go to play.bcbrawlers.com and start to play our BC Brawlers game.
Can you play that Brawlers without having a Wax wallet yet? Like, can you? You
know what? You absolutely. It's a great question. I'm gonna parse that answer. So, when the full game launches, you will be able to. We'll have a free to try. Just come in. Your S 23048, right? And here's the cards to play and the moves to use and the finishers to humiliate your opponent with. Like, that'll all be present for free to try. You don't need a wallet. You don't need anything. You just play as a guest. Well, we won't let you play from an unlimited amount. You'll play a limited amount. Like, oh, I really like this. Like, oh, okay, cool. Here's the funnel to be a real player. That's one. But, candidly, on the 20th of September, in 12 days, we're going to do an open beta, right? Download it on Steam, the Mac or PC client. Again, just free to play, because we're testing scalability. And we want this to be available to as many people as possible. So a lot of players from the Wax Cloud wallet ecosystem will be there, but we're not going to look at their NFTs. We just want to test scaling and playability and rule design and balance in the emerging metas. One of the really interesting notes that Richard Garfield gave us, he said, get this game in front of as many people as you can for as long as you can to make sure that it's balanced, and then, launch it in a live environment. So we're running a very public beta. That, again, just go to Steam and go into your library, and you'll see where it is to be downloaded. And we're really going to be pushing that hard in a couple of weeks. You do not have to own a single thing to try it. So we think that's another thing that people are used to, that they want to do. They want to try it without friction and without the complication of wallet or buying a cryptocurrency, which can be an absolute mind-numbing experience for those who haven't done it before.
How is Wax thinking about stopping exploitation, stopping botters? Do you think like KYC might be necessary, knowing your user?
KYC is always important for credit card and fraud. For botting, I think it's really simple. Have a game that can't be botted. Like, you can write scripts that are pretty simple all the time. And where you introduce human decision-making, though, is where bots fall down. So if you're playing a game that's a PvP game that relies on human decision-making, and you've got real gameplay that matters, then botting is like, I don't care how smart you think you are as an engineer, you're not going to write a bot that's going to be able to beat me in a game. Like, the game can, because the game knows the outcome, but a player that's writing a bot that you're competing against from a heads-up play, like, they'll never be able to compete. So write features in gameplay that reward players that are real players, that don't reward players that are scripters. And so when you look at the mining outcomes or these farming games, they're ignoring your interface and writing straight to the smart contract. That exploit will always exist as long as you allow it to exist. But as soon as you bring in human choice and human decision-making and that level of kind of delineation, that's where the real player wins and not the bots. One of the things we did to limit bots in blockchain brawlers is we put an artificial window on. You can only play the game for this much. And human players felt like, oh, I can perform the same as a bot. So therefore, I don't feel disadvantaged. Therefore, I don't feel like there's an exploit. We said you can only take this much currency out of the world over this amount of time. And it was very quality of life focused, right? It said to the human player.
Okay, so this is the first thing that I'm not sure I 100% agree on with you. So I'm going to push back a little bit here. But when you, I guess there's multiple ways that I kind of want to talk about this, but let's just start with artificial intelligence. And like we've already seen AI beat the world's best chess players, the world's best Go players, the world's best StarCraft 2 players, which is now we're getting to a super complex competitive video game. And we're seeing the cost of actually producing artificial intelligence drop at a compounding rate that is insane. Like, I think a decade from now, people are going to be able to run and train their own AIs that are going to be able to get better at them at any game. And it's going to be like relatively cheap to do that. So what would you say about like that pushback that AI actually is going to get better than us at any game that has like really clear rules and can just be tried over and over again?
Yeah, I would ask if you played against the bots in League of Legends and what your impression of that is.
Well, obviously the bots in League of Legends aren't great, but like they aren't trying to be the best. Like
they can be great. I've actually been in a game jam at Riot where they wrote unbelievably smart bots, and it was so frustrating to play against because they never missed any skill shot.
Yeah.
Flash was always on point. They healed at the right time or whatever. Like I hear you, right? So your argument doesn't fall on deaf ears. I guess the question becomes, at what point does your game matter to the people who have the ability to, engineer these kind of solutions, right? And so, real human interaction matters, right? So validating that is a human is going to matter. Whether you do it through captures, or you do it through KYC, or you do it through some other means, look, I mean, there's a huge controversy I'm falling in the art world around, all these, AI generated, algos are winning these artistic competitions, and the real artists are like, this is not fair.
Yeah,
you're right. It's fair.
I know.
They have way more tools at their disposal.
I'm part of a Discord right now with an AI that generates art, and they're like training it. It's been getting a lot better. I'm hoping soon.
Midjourney?
Yeah, Midjourney. I'm hoping soon Midjourney's going to be able to create my thumbnails for my videos for me.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Absolutely wild.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, that's one thing that like players will really be frustrated, especially if there's actual value on the line, like real world value on the line, if they're just getting crushed by bots that are impossible to beat. And I don't know, maybe some type of ID verification that's different in each country or something will be necessary. I'm not sure. I know crypto people hate that because it's all about anonymity and stuff. But it might be necessary for sustainability.
Look, and I think the thing too is that when you want to write a script or a bot that exploits an economic advantage, I understand. Like the bad actors will want to do that, but when it's talking about a kind of heads up play, I think the AI that's written is to show that they can, right? Like the guy who wrote that, the Watson stuff, that was a whole team of IBM people, right? Really, really smart, really engaged. They spent a ton of money to figure out if they could do that. And they can, whether that's scalable and it goes down to a guy in his basement is able to do it and he can win any kind of esports competition. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know when we get to that. We should.
Maybe the average person can't do it within the next 5 years, but at some point when you look at the cost declines of training AI and creating AI, it's like everyone's going to have access to it eventually. But let's talk about this at another angle, which is that let's say that somebody can't actually create an AI that's better than an average human. Let's say it's only 1/10 as good. But because being 1/10 is good, even though they can't farm 100%, they're only getting 10% of what they might be able to farm.
Right.
Because there's value in farming that. And it's like at the point of highest success is when the incentive for exploitation is also going to be the highest. Like when the coin's doing the best, that's when the incentives are going to be the highest. Someone can like run a bunch of Amazon Web Services, like get a bunch of server power and maybe just create 100,000 bots that are all playing from different parts of the world, all only doing 1/10 as good as players. But because you can just keep spinning up more and more and more, and the ROI just has to be slightly better than the cost of running them. like that could destroy a game economy as well. It doesn't even have to be better than a
Yeah,
player.
and we saw that a little bit in blockchain brawlers. So what do we do? So this really interesting so we set out to do blockchain brawlers as a learning exercise to establish some baselines and understand player behaviors and who the customer was and the mentality and all that stuff. And we launched it kind of at the tail end of the mining phase games, like the click farming, click mining, what have you. Right? And so we learned a lot, and we said, well, one of the things that we saw with one of the popular games on our chain was they went from 10 billion tokens to 50 billion tokens. And right away, players, like in terms of what the cap was, all the time, like, oh my God, my token's now worth 1/5 what it was. I'm out. Right? And they left. So we said, let's take that off the table. Let's make it 1 trillion tokens because we're Wax and we can mint 1 million tokens. And whatnot. Let's not even have that be part of the argument. People like, oh, 1 trillion tokens. I can't wrap my head around that. It's 227 years of gameplay, 24/7 by 1 million players. Like, and they farmed and they sold at really irresponsible levels. So we said, okay, that didn't work for us again because we don't know that we always had the answers. So you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna burn every token beyond 1 billion tokens. The cap is 1 billion. Like there's only 1 billion tokens in the world. So we went from super inflationary to super deflationary. We said, as soon as we hit 1 billion tokens, that's it. No more tokens to be mineable. And what the players have versus what we have, here's the division. And everything we do going forward will be deflationary, tied to increased utility. Now what are the bots doing? Like there's no more currency to be mined unless you win it in a head-to-head competition, right? And so again, that's not a scalable solution. So you can have 100,000 Amazon bots. Great, they're not mining anything. Like now you want to train them to play the game, like you said, maybe in 5 years, that's something we worry about. But you put a hard cap on it, right? Cap, and you say there's only this much. And if it's not seen as this huge, like, oh, I can exploit this, then it's more than putting bars on the window of the house you live in. It's like there's literally the house is empty inside. Like you can bring it, there's nothing to steal. There's literally, you want to rip up the hardwood floor, great, God bless, right? But TV's gone. My sectional that's really badass is like all these things are gone. There's nothing to take, right? And that's what we put a cap on that. So there's nothing to exploit. And the tokens have been distributed amongst the players, and some of them are bots, sure, but they're also us. And now the things players do that have value, that have entertainment tied to them, is aimed towards changing and shifting the balance of people's currency allocations.
Yeah. Well, I'm rooting for you guys because if you can stop the exploiters, that's value for players, and I'm so excited about this just being so great for players. And
cap the token. That's the bottom line. If there's a cap on what can be earned, and it's just redistributing among the people that are there, let the bots fight with the bots. But we want human decision, limits, and you earn by winning, by performing, by actually playing, not by mining. So those are the 3 big takeaways.
Okay,
I'm rooting too.
Just three final questions, and we'll end this out here. So the first one, if I'm a developer, because there's a lot of developers that watch this channel as well, how would I get started developing on Wax? What does that look like, onboarding new projects onto the chain?
Yeah, it's really simple. Again, go to wax.io. We have a whole developer portal in terms of all these publicly available documentation in terms of what the EOS-IO standard is, which is what we're based upon. It's delegated proof of stake. It could not be easier. It's C#. So if you're not a C# group, then you maybe want to be leery of that. But we do have a Wax SDK. We have a lot of again, kind of content. We have a whole team at Wax that their sole purpose is to help new developers kind of onboard and understand.
How big is that team, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I don't mind asking. It's 35 people.
Okay, cool.
35 people on the Wax blockchain side in terms of support, service, integration, problem solving or troubleshooting. Like we really do want to make sure this is kind of an easy kind of place to come in, and we built that tech documentation, that library, to be pretty much like, you actually don't need us. Like it's a very well thoughtful and comprehensive set of guidelines. But if you do need us, we're here for you.
Sweet. So personally, I know you've talked a lot about blockchain brawlers. What is your favorite Web3 game right now, or what is your favorite one that's in development that you can't wait to release? Either one.
It's such a good question, and obviously, blockchain brawlers is my John Madden. Like John Madden Football is the first game I worked on in the console space, and so I have a lot of nostalgic love for John Madden. But I have a ton of love for blockchain brawlers in the same regard. I'm going to give you a different answer as well, so bear with me for just a second.
Sure.
Blockchain Brawlers represents this paradigm of what we believe the future is. Like we have a clear set of lanes for people that want to be investors and gamblers and speculators that want to be content producers, right? And that is limited to 1,000 players. And then we have this whole funnel that's going to bring in millions of players. They're going to buy things from the thousands of players. So the thousands of players, the 1,000 players go, I see what my role is, right? So we have this nice bifurcation of the economy, like, oh, producer versus gamer, right? So that exists, tied to a really fun to play game designed by Richard Garfield, who is a prince of an individual. If you ever get the chance to meet him, he's just one of the best people in the world.
I'll definitely do a Blockchain Brawlers live stream here at some point, so the viewers can experience that gameplay.
We're doing an open beta on the 20th, and any day you play beyond that will be better than the day you played previously. So know that's going on. That's one. But there's a game called Metropolis Origins, which is out. It's in soft launch. It's developed by a guy named Graham Devine.
Wait, say the name again.
Metropolis Origins.
Metropolis.
And so Metropolis Origins is a trading card game, but you really have to know more about it than that. I mean, so Graham Devine created Seventh Guest and 11th Hour and Quake 3 Arena, and he was at Magic Leap, and he's like this Scottish dude who is so kind of dyed-in-the-wool game designer and story and community driven, that if you look at the assets, if you look at the narrative, if you look at all these things, it's this really dark, noir kind of, look and feel, but it's this really deep gameplay mechanic, rock, paper, scissors, kind of this faction versus this faction versus this faction. Like, it's so comprehensive and complete and really thoughtful and well done. And it's a wax project. So naturally I love it kind of for that as well. Sure. But here's a traditional game developer when none of them were coming over. A year ago, he said, I'm going to build Web3 when nobody else did. Like, what, are you crazy? Like, you could do anything you want in the world. You decide to do this. So Metropolis Origins is beautiful. I think there's a potential for a Netflix series. Like, there's this larger than life thing that's being built that is really exciting. I do like Big Time a lot. I love kind of the art style, the look and the feel. I believe in what they're doing in a big way. It's games that respect how hard it is to come in and just start to figure out how to play are games that I really appreciate. Like, onboarding is such a massive problem for this industry or for this sector of this industry. So games that kind of, speak with the, kind of player user interface onboarding are things that I actually like to talk about as well. So I think both those games do it in a really, really well way. I wasn't confused on how do I get started, right? Which is such a simple thing to say. I can't believe people don't have that right, but they just assume, like, 'cause as an industry, we're guilty of talking to ourselves, right? It's like, oh, you have a wallet and it's all FI terms and it's like, marketplaces and indexes and exchanges. It's like, if you're a gamer, you come in and you hear this, like, you're not even speaking the same language as me. Like, dude, I'm out. Like, there's tons of things I do that don't confuse me. This really confuses me. Removing that confusion is really important for mass adoption.
Cool. So final question, when will Web3 gaming go mainstream? And when I say that, I guess what I'm asking is, like, what year do you think there's going to be more gamers playing Web3 games than playing traditional games? Like, the point where Web3 gaming has clearly won.
Yeah, this is a great question. I get asked it a lot. I think in my mind, if I just look at acceptance rates and development velocity and developer velocity and really objectively when are great games coming in that are going to be North Stars or killer applications, I think that I think those things will start to happen in the next 18 months. I think that there will not be a game that comes out in our world kind of early 2026 that doesn't have an NFT or a fungible token component to it. Like, I think we're 3 years away from every single game that launches will have some sort of utility tied to ownership.
That's super optimistic. I hope you're right about that, because that would be great for our YouTube channel.
What's going to happen is it's going to hit a tipping point, right? It's going to be friction, and at some point the market is going to tip, and everybody's like, oh yeah, we have to hurry up and make sure that we have NFTs and utilities and marketplaces and all those things in, because it's what everybody wants. But somebody has to lead the way. Somebody has to show what is that paradigm.
Someone proves the concept, gets a insane amount of success, and then everyone, it's a race. Right. Chase them.
It's a hard right turn, right? Like, into NFT land, and into fungible token land, and into utility and assets and marketplaces and secondary. Like we talk about a player-to-player economy. Like if you can't get excited about a player-to-player economy as a developer, then you don't have a pulse. Like that is where the world is going to go, because players want to buy and sell things to each other. We know this. We've seen this for 30 years in Ultimate Online before you were born. Somebody literally sold a house for $3,000 on eBay.
Yeah.
Like, and it was such an eye-opening moment. And then in World of Warcraft and all these, MMORPGs, people are buying and selling gold from gold farmers. Like we see this behavior throughout history. It's not like, oh, I hope this works. It is working. It has worked. It will work. We're just going to legitimize it and bring it into the light.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for spending an hour and a half with me when we only slated an hour. I appreciate that. I think the viewers will really enjoy this conversation.
I hope so. Yeah, absolutely. I enjoy talking to you.
And you've opened my eyes to Wax a little bit. I know there's like Crypto Stash has talked about it with me a couple of times. He's like, you need to become a bigger part of this ecosystem. But I think after this conversation, I definitely will. I'm going to look into it, mess around with some of the games on Wax a bit more. And I appreciate you opening my eyes to this side of crypto gaming, which I feel like I already should have been more involved with before talking with you here. So
look, every day is about discovery, right? It's about 100%. Learning new things. It's about moving forward. It's about increasing our own personal brand and our own purview. I learn a lot of things from watching because I'm so heads down on what I'm doing. It's hard for me to look around and take inventory of, what's the best project on, whether it's, Solana, Polygon, whatever. Like I lose track of them all because I'm so focused on building what we're building. So you've helped me. My proximity to you and your content has helped me grow and learn as well. So happy to pay it back to you in a certain regard.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I'll do the outro.
That'd be great. Look, we'd love to talk to you about helping us promote. We've talked to your project promotion group, and they've kind of ghosted us and haven't gotten back to us. We'd love to figure out how to do more and how to take an active role in utilizing you and your brand and your audience in a meaningful way. And there's things we can do to make it worth everybody's while. But again, getting that connective tissue or making sure those conversations take place is something that's important to us. So
I'll make sure that we're following up with you guys, because working something out would be great. For sure.
Fabulous.
Cool.
Jake, this has been wonderful. I really appreciate you having me on. I'm humbled by the invitation, so thank you for that.
No, this is great. I'm literally just so happy in this moment, like the fact that I get to talk to so many people that are actually changing the way that gaming is working. Like you're on the ground, you're creating this stuff that's going to change gaming forever. And when I started this On-Chain Gaming channel like 16 months ago, I had no idea I was literally going to be able to talk to the people heading up all of these projects and stuff. Like this has just blown me away, and I'm humbled as well that I get to have these conversations too.
I think the thing that you realize, so you get excited to talk to people like me who are changing the way gamers are going to consume content and what they're going to be able to do with it, right? Like that's a really powerful thing that, again, inspires me every day. You're actually contributing that as well. You're taking that same messaging and you're bringing it to, you have such a wider funnel and a larger megaphone to use. Like you're inspired by that cause as well. So the thing that drives me and sets me on fire is the same thing that, lives inside of you.
Totally.
And so we're aligned in our beliefs. And anytime you align a belief structure with somebody, you're going to get a lot more kind of beneficial content and value from that. So
totally.
I recognize it.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Michael. I'm sure we'll talk again. Keep up the good work, and
cheers.
Cheers.
I really hope you guys enjoyed that conversation with Michael. He was so kind to give us an extra 30 minutes so that we could dive even deeper into those topics that I was really enjoying discussing with him. I've become a lot more bullish about Wax after that discussion. If you guys did enjoy it, remember once again to drop a big thumbs up. That will help the video get pushed out to more people by the YouTube algorithm. So if you're excited about the space and want to see it grow, that is one of the easiest ways that you can help support the space, is just by telling the algorithm that this video is interesting and it should be recommended to more people. And then also, if you just watched this whole interview and you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Make sure you hit subscribe and click that notification bell so that you do not miss any future content. And until next time, everyone, have fun roaming the metaverse.